What's the most creative punishment your parents gave to you? My dad once grounded both my sister and I. We were blaming each other when he decided to separate us. He came into my room and sat down on the bed before taking a deep breath and explaining that he knew my sister was the one to blame. He asked me how long I think he should ground her for. I said a couple of days. He then went to her room and told her the same thing. It was all my fault and he knew it. Asked her how long he should ground me for, and she said a month. So she got grounded for a month and I got grounded for a couple of days, because that's what punishment we each thought was appropriate. She stopped being such a spiteful bitch after that. I once misfired a Nerf gun in front of my dad and he had me go through a manual on gun safety. My mom created the wheel of punishment. When I would be naughty I would have to spin the repurposed board game spinner and whatever punishment it landed was the punishment I had to do. Once, when regular punishments weren't working, my mom said she was putting a curse on me that someday I would have kids just like me. I laughed at her. Years later when I was in childbirth I begged her to take the curse off and she laughed and told me it was too late. Luckily, my kids are so much better than I was. When I thought I was big and tough, after getting into an argument with my father, I told him that I didn't need him anymore. He simply goes downstairs and shuts off the power to my room. After hours of being stubborn and hot-headed, mind you, it was the middle of summer and I lived in the attic. I finally caved. I've never said anything like that to him ever again. Making 7 kids shovel snow using pots and pans because we lost the snow shovels building snow forts. My father once gently slapped me with a loaf of ham. That was so unexpected that I just shut it up. Edit. I accidentally created a philosophical debate over what is a loaf of ham. Keep thinking, fellas, I'll bring the secret to the grave. Not me, but I had a coworker whose son was 13 and had all the hallmarks of sulky teen. Her favorite punishment was making him sit next to her on the couch for a couple of hours while she did all of the best mom things. Hugging him, making bad jokes, etc. This was only for mild infractions and from what I heard he was a pretty good kid who didn't get in major trouble. But she thought this punishment was hilarious and I had to agree. Punish by smothering with mom love. A teenager's worst nightmare. I've been dying to tell this story. It wasn't me but my best friend and her brother, when they were younger, would not stop fighting. Their parents tried everything. Taking their toys, early bedtime, grounding, can't see friends, etc. But they wouldn't stop. So one day their dad had the bright idea of putting them in the garage, sitting next to each other, while holding hands, while watching paint dry on a canvas. And every time they said something rude to each other, he poured a little more paint over the canvas. They were there for 4 hours. But they stopped fighting, so, success? My mum wouldn't just take my Game Boy away for a couple of days or something. She knew her way around Pokémon Yellow too, so she would threaten to release my highest level Pokémon if I was bad. I had a fight with my brother, so I immediately stashed the Charizard I was working on in the PC. She took the Game Boy and sure enough, released it. I was a really good kid. After a late night out of underage heavy drinking, my father got me up at 5 a.m. Decided it was a good time for us to clean the garage thoroughly. I did most of the work for 3 hours. Then he took me to breakfast and discussed the error of my ways, promising more 5 a.m. chores any time it happened again. It didn't happen again. When my brother and I would fight, my mom would make us sit on the couch and hold hands for a long time. If I slammed a door really hard when I was mad, my mom and grandparents would make me practice closing it nicely. I'd have to reopen and then close it gently about 50 times, counting each one out loud. If I closed it too hard I'd have to start over. At one point I learned to get my anger out by just slamming the door over and over and counting, 1, 1, 1, 1. Until I wasn't mad enough to keep slamming the door. They didn't utilize it as much when I started doing that. LMAO. We're not mad, we're just disappointed. Well, fuck. Copying pages of the dictionary to get out of being grounded. Copied lots of pages. My mom called it the Stone Age punishment, and it heckin' worked. She took away every piece of digital technology I owned and each week with good grades I was able to earn back something, starting with my radio. I never remember music sounding as good as it did that day. My grades went up because I had nothing to do but my homework and I became really creative because after homework there was nothing left to do but draw and write. My father once punished me by making me make the wooden spoon he was going to spank me with. Long story short, I broke our existing punishment spoon by putting a metal plate inside my pants when I got a spanking once. So my punishment for that was that I had to saw off a tree branch from our garden and carve a new spoon out of it, after which the spoon was christened on my bum. I must say, getting spanked with a tool I made myself felt more degrading in a weird way. After reading these comments, y'all parents were fucked as all hell. Once when I was real bad, my mother made me sleep in the pig shed with the pigs. I thought it was a silly punishment and wasn't scared of it when she threatened it, but it was so much worse than I thought. Got sent home from school the next day, too. Apparently it was easy to tell. Got caught smoking by my father just before Christmas school holidays. He made me get up every morning at 5 a.m. and milk the cows on the dairy farm for the entire holiday period. Jokes on him because I loved working on the farm with him and didn't stop me smoking. What's the most unsatisfying bullshit ending to a TV series? Cries and Got. Roseanne's original "It Was All Made Up" ending. I am not okay with this. It was cancelled by Netflix, so ended on the biggest pisstake of a cliffhanger. It was a really well-made show, too. Dexter. I pretend the last season doesn't exist, but unfortunately it seems they are going to restart the series from that point. Crossing my fingers they can somehow salvage the character. That 70s show had a pretty unsatisfying ending. It just feels like they left so much out that needed to be wrapped up before it just ends. Pretty Little Liars. The whole time, A was a secret twin. I'm sorry. What the fuck? How unoriginal and disappointing. I will forever be mad at the writers for that one. The Itchy, Scratchy and Poochie Show. Died on the way back to his home planet, my ass. HIMYM. House of Cards. I didn't even feel anything while watching. Not anger, not shock, not disappointment. Just pure apathy, because of how ridiculous and awful the rest of that final season was. I was just like, well, I guess that was that. I've never seen a show fall off a cliff like this before. Game of Thrones, where they somehow managed to make the ending so bad that they made the earlier seasons unwatchable knowing how it ends. The 100. The final season went off the rails. Everyone was acting out of character, and the decisions of the group were awful in the last episode. The main characters gave up being immortal, living in an alien paradise dimension, to hang out with Clark playing out some camping fantasy for the rest of their natural days. Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles just because of the cliffhanger ending it was cancelled with. The last episode of Sherlock is one of the worst episodes of any show I've ever seen. The whole season sucks, but man. My Name is Earl and anything else that ended on a cliffhanger. Dexter and Got's entire last season. Orange is the New Black, but to be honest the whole show went downhill after Pussy died. Penny Dreadful. Sad Face. Firefly. It just ended. I'll just add How I Met Your Mother as worst before anyone else does. Light spoiler. Because of the series' niche, the series finale was written at the same time as the pilot, and undid a massive amount of character growth the series went through. Star Trek Voyager. The crux of the series was that the Voyager and its crew were thrust to the other side of the galaxy, and it would have taken decades for them to return home. They found ways to cut years off their journey in their 7-season run. The very last episode involves time travel. What ultimately devolves into cheat codes. Hey, I'm you from the future. Here's a bunch of advanced technology to aid you in using this shortcut, and the last scene of the series is them getting home. But we aren't shown any falling action from that. Extremely unsatisfying and unearned. It was the equivalent of someone telling you a story and the end is just them lifting up their leg to release a massive fart and laughing at you.